Hi, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Vinny, for inviting me today. I'm Colin Breakwell with HCL. So HCL, very large global IT company based out of India, and I work for the SAP practice within HCL, specializing in SAP implementations. And today we're going to be talking about our MRO products. So I'm lucky enough to head up the product development team within HCL SAP practice and solely look after creating products and IP that we sell as part of our transformation projects and part of our kind of overall SAP offerings and portfolio. So today we're going to talk about MRO, maintenance, repair and overhaul, and the products we have in that space. And really, we have a
Colin, you're in London, but you're part of the global practice, right? You cover the US, you cover a lot of regions.
Yep. So I am based out of London, but yes, I work at a global team covering kind of global product development. And as part of that kind of software team, that product development team, I cover product pre-sales globally for our products and our MRO solutions.
Thank you for the introduction.
No problem. So, and my background really, so I've been around kind of aerospace and airline maintenance for the last 30 years nearly now. I feel old today. So really specialized in this kind of MRO space and aircraft maintenance and aerospace and defense.
Yeah, at HCL, a few years ago, I wrote a book which had a case study on the Boeing 787. And HCL actually played a part in introducing me to Boeing and so on. So you guys have been reasonably strong in aviation for a while.
Yeah, so across HCL, it's a really interesting sector, huge sector across the kind of, not only in the SAP practice, but in our engineering teams, in our outsourcing teams, you know, huge activities across a really wide span of the IT kind of activities and outsourcing activities. So yeah, aerospace plays a big part of the HCL heritage.
Yep. Whole product engineering side. Yep.
Yeah. So today we're going to, try and focus a little bit about these two products called IMRO and ISAM, and just explore that kind of journey of using SAP technologies in complex maintenance. And this is an area that we've developed products in for 15 years. We work really closely and have a strategic partnership with SAP and the SAP industry business units for aerospace and defense and travel and transport and logistics, and really have that partnership. And we are the SAP strategic partner for developing add-ons in the complex maintenance space. And really complex maintenance here representing the maintenance of big complicated assets like aircraft engines, aerospace components, so regulated components, or very large maintenance events. An aircraft maintenance event, thousands of individual work orders spanning maybe 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, engine overhaul the same, so big events that need a lot of planning, lots of orders with really big complicated assets and asset hierarchies. That's a complicated activity in any system requiring quite specialist functionality. And because of that,
the angle you committed is an asset management angle or a field service angle. As you go through it, just
yeah,
how you go to market.
Yeah, and so I guess that's a good lead into this slide really around the business processes, the reference kind of model for MRO. So on the left here we have that left wheel, really looking at that engineering, scheduling and planning, maintenance operations and support processes, that core kind of MRO activities underpinned with engaging with customers, so if you're doing third-party work, and then your supply chain integration being critical into maintenance. And then because we're doing that in the SAP environment, we're doing that inside SAP ERP, we've got native integration onto finance, onto logistics, onto HR processes, corporate services, all the other kind of core ERP functionalities there underpinning the very specialist things of maintenance. And we tend to look at maintenance, repair and overhaul in kind of aerospace and airlines in some different use cases around kind of maybe component repair, so parts coming off aircraft or being returned from operators being repaired, and that could be anything from a simple kind of electronics unit, a black box, mechanical units, pumps, actuators, could be landing gear, engines, the whole, the engine without, 10,000 components in it, or, anything in between that. So a huge number of different types of components being repaired. Then you've got your kind of hangar maintenance for the aircraft. So hangar maintenance really spanning anything from overnight work to the big kind of C-check work over perhaps 4 weeks, upwards, big modification programs. And then you've got your kind of line maintenance work where the aircraft is being maintained at the gate for turnaround.
Colin, the engine providers like Rolls-Royce would do this themselves, right? And
so
airlines like Delta and Lufthansa that offer this to other airlines. So do you subcontract with them, or are you competing with them? Where do you position against those?
So we're positioning IT into those kind of companies, right? So these are the solutions that a Lufthansa Technik would use, or a Rolls-Royce would use, or an operator like Delta, British Airways. They all need different parts of these solutions depending on what they do.
Okay.
If you're a fleet operator like BA, you need to manage your maintenance schedules, do your compliance when maintenance is due, defining how to do it, and they might subcontract out to another provider, or you've got the kind of Rolls-Royces or the Lufthansa Technics of the world doing maintenance. And SEP is quite widespread in that industry. SEP is widely adopted by the larger providers, and we provide software into that environment to provide the specialist functionality required by them. And we're doing that across that span of the MRO process. So from anything from engineering, things like how do you build a service bulletin inside SEP and represent embodiment and embodiment strategies and embodiment statuses, AD compliance, defining your maintenance program, so you schedule maintenance, when maintenance needs to be done, the rules governing maintenance, how to do your maintenance, task procedures, bills of material, all those things, kind of engineering. Looking at planning, so anything from kind of long-term planning, maybe in aircraft you may be looking at 5 years, 10 years out. Some programs you're doing a big mod program, or a big kind of looking at kind of landing gear changes, you're looking at in the long term. Anything down into kind of your 1 year plan, your 6 month plan, short-term planning. I guess operations really executing maintenance, the shop floor processes, the hangar processes of actually doing work and giving technicians digital tools to do work in real time. So electronic work instructions, digitizing the shop floor, anything from terminals, tablets, mobile devices to improve efficiency on the shop floor, but improve efficiency, maintain compliance, and provide real-time data updates in the system so you know progress and you know where you are. Really in operations support, got to integrate with all of the complexities of tooling, warranty, audit processes in there. And if you are the big difference between an operator like a British Airways and a kind of maintenance, a third-party provider, perhaps like Rolls-Royce or Lufthansa or Jet Aviation, customer engagement very different in those models. But if you're a provider of maintenance and you're charging people for it, customer engagement critical in terms of quoting, billing, all of those commercial processes are very complex. And if you've got a multi-million-dollar maintenance event for an engine overhaul, you've got to estimate the prices right, get approvals, over and above work needs to be approved. You've got to get your billing accurate, and you've got lots of different mechanisms, whether you're fixed price, time and materials, capped pricing, all of those models in customer engagement need to be in play.
And more and more outcome based, right?
Yeah, so you've got your outcome, and then you've got that internal contracting problem with outcome-based maintenance. Often one team own that outcome contract, and then another team, they would then buy maintenance for that contract from other internal divisions or even external. So you've got an internal kind of play as well to deal with outcome contracts.
Who typically owns the digital twin, the visibility into the whole process? Is that something you would provide, or?
I think an SAP solution provides that. I think, part of what we're doing is trying to strengthen that digital thread all the way through from the kind of definition of work all the way through planning, operations, and execution and reporting. So we are trying to ensure and strengthen that kind of idea of the digital thread. Now, clearly, if you are in a kind of outcome-based or powered by the hour kind of classic contract, you probably have more of the digital thread. If you're the operator maintainer, you've got a good strong digital thread. I think it starts to get complex when you have operators owning part of it, and then you have maintainers owning another part of that thread, and those interplays between the providers still are complex, and the type of data being passed and the size of the data. So there's work on that, I think, in a kind of multi-vendor environment when you're outsourcing maintenance, but an SAP system would provide a strong backbone to digital threads and access to the digital thread and maintaining it.
Now, Colin, this model is moving into other heavy assets, right? Wind turbines, complex industrial equipment. Are you primarily focused on aviation, or are you in a broader set of verticals?
No, so absolutely, we see the same thing. So we often talk to our clients, and HCL, very broad, very cross section of clients across all those sectors, manufacturing and energy, utilities, natural resources, they're big sectors for HCL. And we do talk to clients about maintenance. So wind turbines been a big focus, talking to a wind turbine client recently. We've got a big focus in ANZ on natural resources and mining. And what you see in most of those industries is assets getting more complex and more valuable. So mining is a good example. Mining trucks, maybe 30 years ago, 50 years ago, simple things, weld them back together, they weren't expensive. But now when you look at mining equipment, multi-million-dollar, high value, highly complex automated equipment that needs a completely different maintenance regime on it. And you see the synergy becoming stronger between those other industries and the kind of classic aerospace requirements. And you see a lot of synergy between that. We ran a session recently about what those industries could learn from aerospace, which was a really interesting topic about, digital thread, continuity, traceability of maintenance. So to support those kind of processes, I guess, that we've got there and the process wheel, we've built solutions on top of SAP. So at the heart of this solution set is SAP S/4HANA, providing its really strong core ERP capabilities. And in there is a strong plant maintenance capability, and an EAM solution set is inside SAP through the maintenance and service management processes, and a whole layer of kind of intelligent asset management coming from SAP, the green areas of that wheel. But in these kind of very specialist areas of regulated assets, complex assets, there is still white space, and HCL over the last 15 years have built the suite of products in the blue. So we've got the IMO Digital Core, really providing a heavyweight transactional engine for these complex processes, whether that's kind of defining industry data like service bulletins, maintenance programs, whether that's kind of disposition and inspection workbenches, material allocations, really role-based specialist capability, your transactional engine coming out of the IMO Digital Core. And that's been with clients for 15 years. We've got over 25 customers using that globally, 70,000 users. It's a big product that we license, support, and maintain in some of the world's largest A&D and airline customers. But in the last 2 or 3 years, we've been developing a new generation of products called ISAM, so intelligent service and asset management products. And that's really bringing a whole new layer of capabilities to the transactional engine of SAP, and really moving from a transactional based view of the world, building transactions that do things, to a kind of insight driven, intelligent enterprise view of the world. And we'll see a little bit of that and that shift in the next slides, but really trying to guide users to what they do through intelligent kind of KPIs, intelligent insights, and bringing data alive to help guide them through processes. And that's what we call the IMRO 4 bundle, bringing those set of products together into a full stack kind of end-to-end MRO solution. And then we have a roadmap on those products. So in the middle, we have the products today, and we continue to invest in quarterly releases of new functionality, new products coming online, and slowly pivoting towards building pure play cloud solutions. So historically, we've had a kind of we've embedded solutions inside S4HANA, which runs on cloud and on-prem, but it's not a pure multi-tenant kind of cloud-first, cloud-native solution. The next generation of ISAM products are going to be built cloud-first, still tightly coupled with your SAP S4HANA core, but a slightly different architecture built in a kind of more modern cloud-first architecture. And we've got that set of products coming online starting this quarter. So hopefully the first 2 products available in March on the SAP App Store. This really just summarizes, this is an example of the architecture. So we've got that S4HANA core, plant maintenance, project systems, sales and distribution, manufacturing, materials management, all of that really core kind of and mature capabilities coming from S4HANA. Your IMO Digital Core providing transactional strength and industry-specific transactions, and then the innovation layers of the ISAM apps and the insight-driven kind of innovations, all in our architecture stack.
In the SAP world, does their AIN, Asset and Information Network, play a role? Or
yeah, and we see that if I just go back to this architecture, so things like Asset Intelligence Network, ASPM, so you're kind of looking at strategy maintenance, that's all sitting in this SAP Intelligent Asset Management layer around the solution, and that all works with the IMRO and ISAM product. So we're using the same data objects, we're using the same structures, we're able to, if we need to collaborate around an asset, whether that's a component or an aircraft, we can use Asset Intelligence Network to have collaboration. If we want to do predictive insights, we can use the SAP Predictive Insights tools. Same data model, same data, equipment records from SAP, component records, all of that is harmonized between the S4HANA core, the IMRO and ISAM products, and the SAP Intelligent Asset Management products. So you're able to build comprehensive solutions across all of that technology available. And you see some growth in those kind of intelligent products from SAP, focus on more use cases in AIN, focusing on predictive insights and strategy management. And we're looking at some of these ISAM products, these future ISAM products on the right here will be things like connected asset. We have a piece of work and an early MVP on bringing in IoT data more comprehensively into both the intelligent layers and the core, enabling us to bring data from assets, whether that's a wind turbine, a mining truck, or an aircraft, driving that in through the SAP business technology platform, updating objects in the core, harmonizing that with the intelligent layers and things like Asset Intelligence Network. So there's an exciting combination of those products going forward. And when you look at the kind of journey from SAP, thinking about that kind of SAP experience journey, moving from transactions. If you look at SAP 5 years ago, very transaction, some would say, difficult to use screens. That journey now into the new intelligent SAP world of S4, it's completely different. Nice web responsive UIs with intelligence driven at every point. So this is a list of orders in our foundation, in our ISAM foundation, kind of focused on orders, notifications, the core maintenance objects. But you see on the right, just about see it here, there's a little graph, and it's a graph of progress. So when you look at an order, you're seeing its progress in real time. You're seeing how many operations are outstanding, how many have been completed, where are you, and presenting that intelligence at every layer of orders, notifications, project elements, so network activities in the project plan and the whole event, and trying to say, okay, where are you? Where might you have problems? So we have this kind of operations insight transaction really at the heart of complex maintenance to give us that. So we're looking at something like 25 kind of measures on a big maintenance event. So maintenance event, as we said, might have 100 orders, 500 orders, 1,000 orders. Keeping track of that and trying to early identify where things might be going off track is what this whole intelligent insights is about, and trying to make sure you can deliver the asset on time, on cost, on margin, is critical. And that's looking at anything from emerging work, so new work, defects coming that need to be planned, looking at plan versus actual man hours, plan versus actual costs, looking at materials. Do I have the materials? Am I going to get my materials on time? Is there any issues about material supply? Looking at scheduling conflicts in the event, so work orders, can I do them on time to get the next phase? So looking at kind of event phase progress, looking at bottlenecks, capacity planning. So do I have enough resources? Can I do the work on time? Are there scheduling conflicts? And so providing that kind of intelligent insight over this set of data, statuses of orders, often status and whether orders go on hold, whether they're waiting for customers, whether they're waiting materials, feeding all that into one dashboard where the supervisors and the event controllers and planners can see all that and go, okay, what's a problem, what's not a problem, what's the top things I need to deal with. But not only providing a dashboard, this is not a dashboard, this is a insight to action environment where you get the dashboard, but then you drill down, you see the details, and you can take immediate actions on that. So it's much more than just a kind of dashboard in that classic kind of BW sense. This is an insight environment where you're gaining insights, enabling you and kind of navigating you to the required transactions that you can take the actions, trying to help you prevent, preempt issues, deal with issues, update objects in real time, trying to keep the maintenance event running. And doing that instead of 10 different reports in one place with all of the required actions and drill downs required. And again, on multi-device, so you could have a full view on your desktop, a simplified view running on your phone with maybe 1 or 2 key measures that you keep when you're walking around the shop, tablets, laptops, multi-device. That's kind of complemented by more detailed graphical planning. So the graphical planning environments, again, really important, bringing data alive, thinking about how do you plan work, where's your capacity bottlenecks in this case, what alerts you've got, what are the problems, so enabling, to move work, replan work, reorganize the work in a big event. So graphical planning. And then for many of these providers that we've talked about, the third-party providers, environments to build quotations. Quoting complex maintenance is challenging.
This would be. So do you help them with the CPQ? Do you help them with the profitability analysis? All of the above, or is it?
Yeah. So you're really trying to build, so the objective of these solutions is to take your kind of classic maintenance data, so things like work instructions, man-hour plans that you're using to create in the engineering, planning, and execution processes that are classically just used for that, and taking all of that great data that's used for planning and execution and commercializing it, bringing a commercial layer over that same data set. So instead of having kind of a separate set of commercial data, trying to use your maintenance data and think about how you commercialize it. That's the first objective. So one data set used by everybody. And that is often not the way often quote processes tend to, people make it up, use a black book, copy the last quote, do it in a spreadsheet, but hardly ever taking the man hours that are planned in the job card. So really harmonizing that world of engineering and planning and commercial in one environment. And then, actually taking work and thinking about how you take maintenance work and build maintenance products. So building a structure for a set of products. Thinking about how products are commercialized. Are they offered on a catalog with a catalog price? Are they partially, flat rated labor? So labor's fixed, but materials are time and materials. Very complex commercial modeling around these kind of products because it's high value. aircraft components are expensive, lots of labor involved. Getting the right balance of pricing models and commercial approaches is important. And then putting that into an environment where you can actually review. So, you know, in a maintenance event, you might have 1,000 work orders, 1,000 different pieces of maintenance that need to be quoted as one thing. So building an environment where you can see the 1,000 things, filter it, review them, approve them, modify them. So you might want to take the maintenance data and apply some rules to it when you commercialize it, add man hours or perhaps manipulate it a bit, decide how you're going to deal with your materials. So that this whole kind of customer management environment is dealing with that manipulation of that amount of data, letting it be updated and reviewed, and eventually creating a quote. So an SAP quote object at the core of it is created, but you've got layers above, and then all the pricing conditions applied. But one of the other things about complex maintenance is often there's more than one payer. So we have a customer that do aircraft maintenance where there's often 2 or 3 people paying for it. So if you're changing the ownership of an asset, definitely the seller is doing some maintenance to get it to a standard. The buyer wants different things applied to it. But even if it's just routine maintenance, there may be a program that you've paid into to pay for the routine maintenance. So you're paying, maintenance reserve kind of model, but you want some extra things done, or the leaser, if it's leased, the lessor is paying for some of it while the customer's paying for other things. So there's the idea of taking one maintenance package and organizing it around who is actually paying for it,
right,
and different payers. That's quite complex. And then, in some environments, different currencies are important. Different bits of the maintenance might be paid for in different currencies for whatever reason, like managing currency management in a business. So you can split a work package, which you built in your planning and execution area, take that into the commercial tools, and then organize it in a different way for the commercial view, but always built on that one set of data. And then you've got to manage all the emerging work. So in aircraft, typically, 30, 40, 50% of the work could be emergent from inspections. So managing work as it is found, defects are found, corrosions found, damages found, taking those orders, getting them built, adding them to the quote, re-quoting them, getting approval on them. That's where this is playing its strength. And what you see in this chart is, as you say, managing margin. So you are looking at in real time, as soon as you create the quote, the cost of everything you're doing, the cost of labor, the cost of materials, the cost of the services, and you see that pie chart there, that Harvey Ball kind of diagram is showing you margin on each event, because it's comparing price and costs. And you're also seeing real-time progress. So with a big event, you're tracking how much of it have you reviewed? Is it ready to go to the customer yet? How much of the work is still unreviewed and not in the quote? So you're able to track the kind of the maturity of these bills of work, these kind of pre-quote objects, and understand their status. And then when you are quoting, what the margins are and what the cost positions are.
now,
And
this
then
this is all aimed at, you're primarily going after SAP customers, is that correct?
Yeah.
Or I mean,
So
because
this
there are
is
other vendors that are moving into this space, right? IFS is moving in, Salesforce is looking at revenue management, but you primarily focus on SAP.
Yeah, this is embedded inside your S4 system. So we are very focused on the SAP market, but trying to make the power of an SAP system, so it's got a great quote solution in core SAP and great pricing rules and things, but just bringing a layer above that to make that easier to use for these complex use cases. So you're kind of taking absolutely the best of an SAP ERP tool set, which is strong and powerful and integrated, and bringing the industry kind of flavor to that to deal with some very specific industry use cases and complexity, and making that even more competitive against perhaps the industry best of breed players. So an IFS is perhaps more traditionally at home in aerospace and defense, really making sure SAP and the SAP tool sets can be competitive or better than those other industry players. And really that best of two worlds model, the kind of harmonizing the capabilities of best of breed tools that would normally have this kind of capability with the the power of the ERP tool set from SAP. That's a unique combination that is rarer, and really suits the modern enterprise well. You've got
Sure. So
real
Colin,
strength.
obviously HCL is a big labor-based organization, right? You sell a lot of bodies.
Yeah.
Is your goal here primarily to sell IP, license IP, or is it to sell the bigger HCL family?
For me, running the SAP software business, my job is selling IP and software products. But software needs to be implemented though. So there's nearly always in a software conversation like this, an element of how do you implement it? How does a customer adopt it? Enterprise tools need to be adapted and kind of configured around an enterprise. That takes labor, takes time. There's always business transformation to be done. So often the conversations go hand in hand, but we have customers where we sell only the IP, we sell software, and sometimes that comes with an implementation. So we do both clearly, and we are a big labor company, but HCL also has its overall corporate strategy would be to say that you need as an organization to move from labor to IP sales. So we are investing corporately globally in software.
I think differently than other outsourcing firms, you've been more proactive. I mean, you bought the IBM products.
The IBM products.
Yeah.
And we continue to grow both buying IP and organically growing IP internally. And there is from the top down this focus on products and software as being kind of the next important thing. And you see that in that journey with SAP as well. SAP now focus on the App Store, partner products, industry cloud. That's all coming from partners. And in one hand, that does, the more IP you have and the more standardized products are, the less it takes to implement. And therefore you're selling slightly less labor. But that is a journey of the real world, and you need to be on the IP journey to stay relevant. People want standard solutions now, they don't want bespoke solutions. Keeping up to date, keeping investment in your products, taking on the latest technologies, cloud, intelligence, machine learning, all those kind of things. They need large players to invest in that technology, and that's where HCL is strong, bring together different technologies, different people with different experiences, with a big IoT team, the big engineering teams. We can harness all of that to build products on technologies. So IP is really central to not only the SAP practice, but us corporately and the overall HCL strategy.
Yep.
So that's really the IMRO and ISAM story. I finished on this slide of reiterating products today with customers being really mature, but really strong roadmap and exciting new developments, new technologies being adopted all the time.
Now this is thank you. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of growing interest in servitization and much more outcome-based models. So the asset-centric business model is going to keep increasing. So,
and I think that trend, we see that trend in especially in many countries where the need, the right to repair, the absolute focus on repairability of assets is also increasing. We're going to transition in that sustainable journey in all of our green agendas and sustainability agendas to a need to repair more things and keep things running longer. And I think that also plays well into these products. There is, even whether you're
seeing some pushback to the John Deere model where people say, wait a minute, I want to report myself. I don't want to pay somebody to keep doing it for eternity.
I think that's a we'll see. Not yet, but I think maybe you'll see people transition, and that's an evolution. I think in aerospace and airlines, what you've seen is the big OEM players begin to really push into the aftermarket. And you're seeing that because margin pressures on new asset sales are high. If you sign up contracts for the long term and you're the providers of maintenance, you can make long-term financial sense from deals, and you're making better revenue. So there is a huge push, I think, from the big OEMs into the aftermarket and maintenance. And then you see platforms being maintained longer. So certainly in defense platforms tend to last longer now. People are pushing back that kind of life cycle of assets harder. So maintenance becomes more and more important. The older the asset is, the more maintenance it needs, the more complex it is to maintain. So you're seeing real growth in that as the kind of the need to maintain things and keep things running longer is there's a trend towards that. Whether that's consumer goods or big defense platforms, I think it's in all areas of that we'll see more requirements for maintenance and more legislation around it. So you see EU rules around the right to repair, OEMs having to make sure they've got stock of parts to maintain assets for longer. So you have a right to repair consumer goods for 10 years in Europe, and manufacturers have to maintain spares and inventory for parts for a long time. So the kind of complexities of making things and maintaining them is getting higher, and the demands on it more. So having solutions to those things is increasingly important.
Fascinating. Colin, thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. And
this is good.
Yeah.
HCL often, it's a big company, so it's nice that you brought out a very strong niche. Thank you for presenting that.